This episode is a special one for me. Today's guest has created for and worked for some of the biggest names and brands in the world, like Delta, Land Rover, Adidas, and so many more. He's also a TEDx speaker and has written a book called Your Platform Is Not Your Purpose. He's also one of my best friends. His outlook on life and his view of purpose dramatically changed the trajectory of my life. And I think if you listen to his testimony, it could change yours too. I hope you enjoy this episode. I'm super excited about today's podcast. I get to have one of my best friends, Blaine Fuhs, on the show today. And we're going to talk about some things that have changed my life in a drastic way. I would say meeting Blaine was one of the most pivotal moments in my life. It's a huge reason why we're even doing this podcast, huge reason why I started the social media. And it just flipped my perspective on how to approach life. And so I'm so excited to open up this conversation and just have a good time talking about all the ways that you've come to understand life. So what's up, Blaine?
Gee.
We're gonna get straight into it. If someone only was going to listen to the first 5 minutes of this podcast, what would you want to tell them to encourage them?
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest thing that I try to emphasize daily is that we matter, that you matter. And simplistically said, we need to believe that there's something inside of us that the world needs to experience. There's a voice inside of us that someone needs to hear. If you do, depending on your career, if you do photo, video, there's a story inside of you that someone needs to watch. Too much of the world is like going throughout each day thinking that they don't have something to offer to the world. And when you go throughout even one day thinking that you don't have something that someone needs, you live pretty purposeless. And, we talk about it in the book, but it's like, I feel like a life that finds peace, embodies joy, and achieves success is one that pursues people with love and intention. And so if you don't listen to anything more in this podcast, you were created to love. You were created to be a light. I don't know where you're going to do that or how you're going to do that, but I know the win is today, and I know the why is for someone. And so if you hear nothing else, that is for you.
There's so many ways we can go with this, and we have to expand on this concept, but why do you think that we've come to sometimes believe that what we don't matter, I guess, as you put it?
Yeah, I mean, I think what happens often is we tie our worth to the world. Like if we don't become or are the thing that we had hoped we would be, then we think we fell short, right? And then whatever that may be, if it's like you didn't reach a certain salary, or you don't have the car you wished, or you don't live in the house or the city that you hoped for, you start to let those projections of not making it become the identity that is you. But the moment you shift your perspective to, hey, I'm not based in what I do or the things I've achieved, but rather my identity seems simplistic, but is who I am, and you pursue to be who you are at the highest level, life becomes a lot more purposeful and, pursuable even, but I think, we get caught up in gaining things and achieving things that we let that cloud maybe just the essence of being who we were created to be, and if we ever fall short of that, the failure of not getting to the place we had hoped for becomes a failure that is us. But that's not true, and so I know it's like a weird answer, but
I mean, I feel like a lot of it's rooted in comparison in a way.
Yeah.
Because comparison, I definitely struggle with that. And it's like you compare where you're at in life with other people, and then you feel bad about yourself for not being where you think you want to be. This kind of, this was kind of the shift that happened when I met you, was I had all these criteria for what I thought I had to get to in order to be happy, and you kind of shifted it to a people first focus, where it was like, if you can just focus on people, then everything you think you want will come your way, at least the things that are supposed to and are not like completely selfish. But what's that kind of shift from the self and comparison to like loving other people?
Yeah, I think it's kind of hard not to compare, like it's I find it daily where it's like, dang, like, yeah, we see someone have something that, man, we would like to experience or whatever that may be, and the comparison begins to seep in. But I think if we're being honest, if we compare worldly things to worldly things, it becomes problematic.
And what do you mean by worldly things?
Like the material as far as like money, cars, house, brands, clothes, like things that we made, like humankind have produced, right? But the moment you shift your perspective to what you value, that's no longer the things that we've created, but maybe just the people around us. It's a different metric that I think is good to compare to, right? And so like, I don't compare the things I don't have materially. I compare the people that I haven't reached to the people I should reach, you know? And it's maybe an interesting concept. I'll kind of try to provide some clarity to it. I wake up and I'm like, man, and I think we'll dive into it later.
We can, whenever.
Okay. So I think, yeah, there'll probably be like more story. I think it might be the next bit, but it's like, man, you know, if I think of you, right, and the impact that you've created with your social media and the other things, I haven't, right? Like I don't have a following. I don't have a platform. You've taken how I view life and have spoken that to many. And I could say comparably, well, I wish I had a following. I wish I was known, right? But what I compare to, and we talk about it a lot, is this idea of a shared bank account. And so like, I don't compare what I have versus what I don't have. I'm in a pursuing mindset. And it's like, it's all additive, not subtractive. And it's like, there is no you impacted 10,000 people and I didn't. It's we did this, you know? And if you look at life in that metric of like, how many people can I impact and become a part of their impact? And it's like, then you're in a, you know, producing mindset just to impact and become a part of that story, but you're not comparing to something you haven't done because it's like, that's not what you value anymore. You know, and I know, is that weird?
No, that makes sense. I mean, like we've talked about, and when you reference shared bank account, it's like, you know, you really helped me to understand this concept of flipping towards people. And then I went and pursued that in my own ways with my own gifts and reached a bunch of people. So we're always joking that like our impact count, it's like a shared bank account or whatever, because of that. But what if you weren't involved in that, but you see someone making a lot of impact on their own? Like it's still a win for everyone, right?
Yeah, I don't know where this quote comes from, but just like celebrating others, right? Like we say that a lot, like I'll be happy for others. But again, I think we tie it into the world, like of what they've achieved worldly. And then we compare and we don't have that. So then we almost indirectly envy them, right? But you're totally right, where it's like, man, if loving people is the highest priority of your life, like if that's the thing you value the most, the more people you can help do that in whatever way they can, that's what you celebrate. You know, it's like, dude, I'm on a mission to love as many people as I was created to impact. And I want you to impact everyone that you were created to impact. And it's like, man, if you pursue that again as your highest priority, you'll start to look at life very differently. And it's not like they have this and I don't. It's like, man, we're being a light and we're reflecting love. And like, that's awesome. And the more we do that, you know, the more impactful we become. And I'll say this as a visual, it's like a team, right? Like as a defensive player, I may not get the glory of scoring a goal in the terms of soccer, but our team's still winning. And if I can play the role that I need to help us win, and what does winning look like? Winning is loving everyone that we come in contact with. If I can push our team in the right direction to get to that end goal of loving everyone we can, the team still won. Maybe I didn't score, but I still played my part. And I think, again, if you can make that your priority in life and how you define success, you're going to get a lot more clarity on maybe where you need to work or the people you need to surround yourself with or the community you should move to. If where can you create the greatest impact is what you're focusing on.
One of my favorite parts about prioritizing, you know, loving others as the highest priority of your life is how much it affects your decision making. Like I've just noticed it so much in my own life where if I'm faced with two decisions and one is clearly just to benefit me, the other one's to impact others in a positive way. It gives you an interesting metric to make decisions through, where it's a totally different decision than I would have made prior to this kind of like paradigm shift. You know, can you expand on that, like how it affects decision making?
Yeah, I think, gosh, I wish I remembered where I heard this from, but it's like often in life we think we need clear steps of where to go and like what moments we should step into and not step into. And although we think we need direction, what we really need is just like the confidence to step into the moment, right? And translating that to answer your question, we know what's right. Like in our heart, we know what is right, but we convince ourselves to do the opposite of that many times. And so again, what we really need to do is just step into love. And as far as like the guiding principle, it's like, man, if you're being honest, if you have two decisions and you stepped back and you said, where can I, invoke the most good? Where can I create the most love in this moment? The answer is clear, and if it's not clear, then it's not that big of an issue. But most of the times if you ask yourself, let's give a practical, should I live in Nashville, Tennessee or move to Los Angeles? Where do you think you can impact the most people during the season it serves you? Go there, and if you felt like, you did that and it didn't meet the level of impact you had hoped for, then go somewhere else, But again, like every decision, it can be even minor. I know I kind of talk about it in the book, but it can even be where you work. If you have the flexibility of like working remote, asking yourself when you wake up, like, can I be impactful to more people at home doing my job? Or can I be more impactful going to a coffee shop today?
Yep.
And like positioning myself in a place for impact. We want to evoke good. We want to be a light, but a lot of times we don't put ourselves in the position to do so. So go there.
Yeah.
And I think if we simplified our life into how we can, again, do the most good and impact the most people, it'll probably take you to a career path that you aren't currently in.
Yeah.
And it'll probably lead you to a city that you maybe don't live in. And it'll cause you to do things that if love was not your guiding principle, you might not go to. But that end destination is probably where you should be. So
something that I really enjoy about this, this lens to look at life through, and I experience it by hanging out with you, and is that it makes life a bit of like a game. We kind of get what we aim for a lot, and if your goal is a ton of money, you'll probably get there somehow. If your goal is a ton of impact, you'll probably get there somehow. And so having this kind of compass, when we're in public or at like coffee shops or whatever, it makes it into this fun game of like, how can you have a conversation that lifts that person up? Like I always use a metric for my life, like where I'm at spiritually is like, how much do I talk to the barista? Like, are they a transaction or are they a human? And so what do you think about that whole thing?
Two things come to mind, and to gamify it, is that's really what it is. It's just like, I think we'll talk about it later, but this concept that I've created in my life that we talk about in the book, I'm not sure what chapter it is, but it's this idea that there was a number appointed above your head. That is the number of lives that you were created to reach. I know that's not maybe finite, may not be real, but it's been a metric for success that I've been able to pursue that's been super helpful, right? And so it's this idea that there was a number appointed above your head that is the number of lives that you were created to reach. And it could be 10 million, it could be 2. The question that we have to ask ourselves daily is, are we looking for that person? Like, are we looking for the person that we were created to be a light to? Because we should be, and it's like, how often do we go throughout our day and we miss those moments? And those moments may be 2 seconds. It might be at a stoplight on your way to work and you look over and see the car next to you and all you were required to do was smile. And that was your person. It's like, did you do it? Or, so we talk about it. Your moment of impact could be now, it could be 10 years from now. And so you're either looking for the person to impact today or you're preparing to impact in the future. That's the constant in your life. It's like, man, I, may need to go home and study for an exam, and that's going to prepare you to impact someone in 10 years when you're a doctor. And it requires you to take those moments of discipline. But I think so often we neglect present impact for future impact, but they're equally as important. you know? And I think if we hold ourselves to that standard of both, we'll see the moments today and then we'll prepare for the moments tomorrow. And when we do that, man, it'll be a fulfilled life because you're on mission.
Dive into that, like because I know there's someone that's listening, because I would listen and say this, like, how do I provide for myself if my only goal is to love people? Like, how's that gonna work out? I got bills to pay, you know?
Yep. I've seen it in my life. You know, I'm not to go too into my story. I don't love doing that. It's in the book for anyone that wants to go deeper. But I've seen it in my life where when you love people and you do that from like just a response, right? It's just who you are is like, I want to, you know, love people at the highest level. You will become the best version of you. And I'll give tangibles, but what I mean by that metaphorically, if pursuing money is your priority, your highest priority, and let's say it's 100,000 and you get to 100,000, inherently you will feel a void of what's next, right? Be like, okay, I did it. Now what? And you'll chase that. But if we're being honest, you're only doing it for yourself, right? Like you're just trying to acquire temporary joy, momentarily satisfaction. And that will not, it might motivate you a little bit, but true motivation will come when you realize that someone's life is waiting for you, right? Like that's been a driving force in my life. Not that like I'm trying to reach a certain level, but I'm trying to find someone that truly, if I do not see or speak to, their life may not exist tomorrow. Like it's that serious. And it doesn't happen all the time, but there's been a handful of moments in my life where truly showing up for someone was life or death. And I think if we can convince ourselves that every moment is life or death, that someone's waiting for you, it may be, again, in a smile that you're holding, it might be a compliment that you're thinking, it might be a business that like you have in your heart that you need to create because there's going to be 5 employees, you know, again, 20 years from now that need you to speak life into their life, speak love into their life, and that'll change everything. And I think, you know, when you look through that lens, it will create a drive in you that will bring out the best in you. And that level of who you were created to be, I don't think is reachable if the world is your pursuit, right? So like if you're pursuing a title or money, you might get there, right? And that's good for maybe your pursuit. But something I talk about in the book is like, you look at people that have acquired wealth, who've acquired material, and you might look at their life and be like, wow, like they made it. But like the one thing we can never see with someone that we've defined as made it is the motive of their heart. You know, like you have things, but have you achieved joy? And it's like not often, you know, like we don't think that. But when we see someone who's abundantly happy, full of life, full of joy, we go, man, they've lived a good life, you know? And as far as, again, how you can provide for your family, another simple answer. When you ask yourself, how can I love the most people? You're going to identify skills within you that allow you to impact the most people. And then in that pursuit, you'll then ask what platform will allow these skills to thrive. And in that platform, you'll become the most effective you. And people will be drawn to you. Right? Because the joy that you evoke in the workspace is contagious. The effort that you put in outside of the clock, not that you have to, but that you'll just want to, will create, again, a level of you that very few people will reach. And I think it's only achievable when loving people is your focus. And I know I've been talking on this topic a lot, but I just want to say one more thing. I guess it'll be anonymous. There was a girl that I met from New York last year, and finance, New York City, young, ambitious. And I asked her, are you happy? And she said 90%. I was like, okay, you're 90% happy. And I go, what about the other 10%? And she goes, I can't figure it out. And I said, I'm convinced that the 10% that you can't figure out is fully attached to your capacity to love. The moment you fully dive into loving people within your work, within your family, within every decision in your life, that 10% will become whole. and the 90 that you're filling will become 100%. But again, a lot of times like that 10% void or 5% void or whatever that longing is for our heart is typically locked up in the worldly pursuit that we're chasing, and we never reach it. And it's like, if you want to be fully alive, you want to be fully human, be fully you, loving people needs to be your focus. And when that happens, you'll create a podcast because you want to impact people. You'll write a book because you want to impact people. You'll go out in public more because you want to impact people. The decisions of your life will change and people will take notice.
I have a dream of getting to 100,000 subscribers. And it would mean the world if you just hit that button below, the red button, it says subscribe, and it's free for you to do. It would really mean a lot, and it allows us to keep creating this content for you. Thank you. Something I love about your book, it's called Your Platform is Not Your Purpose. And I think that something important to distinguish here is like, it doesn't necessarily mean you have to change jobs in order to experience this. And I think it's something we got to touch on, because I know a lot of people, career is a hard thing to nail in something that you're really excited about. It's really difficult to do. And even jobs like I feel so lucky to be doing what I'm doing. It doesn't feel like a dream every day. Like, it's not always easy. And so I think we have this idealized idea of like, if I can find my purpose every day, it'll be amazing. But that's around the idea of like, if I could find the perfect job. And I think that's important to explore. But can you kind of expand on this idea of, I know your whole book's about it, it's your platform is not your purpose, but if someone's in a job that they don't love right now, how can they still take this on?
Yeah, I think it sums up in the title, right? Your platform is not your purpose. I say often that the moment your identity becomes grounded in the thing you do, you will limit your ability to ever grow beyond it. What I mean, if you identify with being a doctor or a lawyer or an artist, and you think that the greatest thing in your life to do is to become that, then once you achieve that, then there'll be nothing else to do. And I think the momentum shift will occur the moment you realize that your platform is just a place for impact. Your job is just a place for impact. It's not the identity of your life. It's not who you were created to be. It's just the place that you can fulfill your purpose. And it changes. Your platform changes, right? Like, for a big part of my life, soccer was my platform. For a big part of my life, video was my platform. My identity was never in video or soccer. It was just the thing I did. My purpose and my identity is in why I'm here, right? And so the moment you focus on fulfilling your purpose, you detach your identity to the thing that allows you to do that, And in doing so, you look at your career in a totally different way. It's not a place that, you're trying to maybe achieve wealth or status or whatever, but it is simply a tool for impact, and you may not like what you do. I think there's a chapter in here called passion is not purpose. And what I talk about is there's a lot of examples of people that have went on to do incredible things, but they didn't enjoy the thing they did. It was in the passion for fulfilling their purpose that they reached the most people, not a passion for the platform that they found themselves in, and a common area for me, people would say, oh, Blaine, you're passionate about soccer. I don't really care about soccer. Or you're passionate about video. I don't care about video. What I'm deeply passionate about is reaching people. And to that, I will pursue with every breath in my lungs, because someone's waiting for me. And again, I think with your career, if you don't like it, if you maybe don't enjoy it, maybe your platform will shift. Maybe that isn't the platform that best allows your abilities to thrive. But right now, that's where you're at. And although you may not like your platform, there is someone waiting for you there. There is someone in your office. There is someone on your commute. There is someone that is waiting for you to be a light in their life. And although you may not enjoy the platform, that does not change that your purpose is still active. Your purpose is, again, waiting for you to step into. And that purpose is someone, But again, when you wait and delay and you live in your emotions that you don't like your platform, you're going to miss that moment. And I mean, this might be a good transition. I think that's the greatest failure of our life. I think the greatest failure of our life is reaching the place of our potential, but missing our purpose. You spent 10 years studying to get the degree, to then get that job. And then you get there, but you forgot your purpose. And the thing you do is important, but maybe it's because there's someone in the elevator that one Tuesday at 9 a.m. that you were just supposed to say good morning to, but you missed it because you were so focused on where you were heading next that you missed what was happening right now. I don't want to miss that moment. And I think in order to not miss the moments we were created to be a part of, we have to have a clear image of what our purpose is, and that's to love people. That's the reason for us, right? That is why we're here. And again, I think too often we get delayed by our agendas, our timelines, our distractions, and we miss those moments. And it's like, man, I want to minimize that moment, missing someone, as much as I can, because it happens too often. And it's like, man, that is detrimental, Yeah. Last thing on that topic, we can kind of pivot. There was a girl at a gas station, and she was in front of me, like frantically going through her purse on her way to whatever was next. And the cashier, when I stepped up in line, she looked at me and she was like, man, everyone's in a hurry to go nowhere. I was like, yeah, you're so right. Like, we're so focused on going to that meeting, going to the podcast, doing that next thing. And it's like, bro, like, was that the moment for her? Like, was smiling at the cashier like the moment that she missed? And it's like, dang, like, we have to realize that we miss those moments. And the moment we realize that we can miss those moments is also the moment we might step into them, So
that's great. I think it's so practical to just ask yourself, like I think so many times we're like, we need to change our whole life in order to achieve this or whatever. But it's like, look at your current situation, what your job is. How could you show up more, like you said, as a reflection of love to the people around you? It's just like an intention for every day. And it's so cool. I want you to touch on the idea of linear progression, if you don't mind. I love that chapter in the book.
Yeah, so linear progression is just this idea of calculating growth in our lives. And an example that I like to give is, if I had a $5,000 car, progress would be to get a $50,000 car. If I had a $100,000 house, progress would be to get $1 million house. And that trajectory of growth, if it's not up and to the right, we've associated with failure. But in my heart, it didn't feel true, right? I felt like there's other ways to live, and it doesn't have to be up and to the right, that still will promote growth and still be maybe the best direction for you to go. But I didn't know how to define that, right? And I guess I'll briefly mention, in my life, I reached a place in my career in 2019 that I just really didn't imagine ever being possible. And there was a big offer that I had to step into, and everyone in the world, like, that offer would change my life. Like, monetarily, it was, a big decision, and everyone around me was telling me to do it. But the reality is that if I was honest with myself, I didn't have peace about it. And what I realized was that I wasn't the leader that chapter of my life required me to be. And so, although in the world's perspective, it would be progress, I would make more money tomorrow than I did in that moment, I didn't feel like that was the right direction for me in my life. And so I reflected on it, and I decided that, I wrote down in my journal that sometimes the highest calling for your life may be to take a step back. And in doing that, you will refine your character, your personality, and maybe even your motives in a way that's required for whatever's next. And the world won't tell you that. The world will never tell you, take a step back, and that would be the most successful thing that you could do. We are consumed with the idea that more is better, that faster is, more efficient. But it's like, man, maybe you should slow down, take a step back. And although the world may not define that as success, it would be the most prosperous thing you could do in your life. And so I did. So I stepped down and refined characteristics about me that I think have molded me into this next chapter that I'll step into. And it was crucial, right, for me to do so. And again, this idea, though, of linear progression, I wanted to deconstruct. And I was like, how do I give a good example that living a life up and to the right is not at times the most successful way of going about our path. And during the process of writing the book, I sat home and I have a fiddle leaf fig in my living room. And
it's a tree.
It's a tree. Yeah, sorry, a tree. Fiddle leaf fig. I come home and I sit down in my living room and I see the tree that's in my living room. And at first glance, it became very clear to me the metaphor that would support this idea that linear progression can take any direction. And when I looked at the tree, the left side of the tree was dying, right? The leaves had withered. Some were turning yellow, but most had fallen off at that time. But on the right side of my tree, which faced the west, it was abundant, right? The leaves were flourishing and the health was very prominent. But the left side of the tree was dead. And when I looked at it, the left side is dead because there's no windows over there. On the right side, though, there's abundant light. And if I were to ask you what trajectory a tree should grow to be its most successful self, what direction would you say?
Up.
Right? But for this tree, that's not the case because there's a ceiling that bounds it. And so if this tree grew up, it would go no further. This tree grew its best self down and to the right. The complete opposite of what anyone might suggest. And so, the lesson that I think that painted for me is that sometimes growth doesn't look like what everyone will tell you to. But when you grow in the direction of light, when you grow in the direction that supports growth, you will prosper. But when you grow and pursue things that are darkness, that do not reflect light, areas of your life will die. And you'll have to give up things that you were never meant to let go of in order to hopefully survive. But that's not what you were created for, right? And so this idea of linear progression for me is that it's okay to take a step back. It's okay to, again, you might be going down and to the right, but in that decision, you might become exactly who you were created to be. And the last thing I kind of give as an example of this is like when you look at a forest, every plant has its own position, right? They thrive in the area that supports its growth. And it may not be up, it might not be down, it may take on many different directions. But if you find peace in knowing that like there's a place that you were created to thrive in and you pursue who you were created to be, you will flourish. If a fern, not that it would, but if a fern tried to replicate the growth of an oak tree, it would die. It grows best by being who it was created to be, not by replicating the growth of another.
How do you audit whether you need to go lower or if you need to keep, like you said, rising up and to the right? How can you audit that?
I think two things. I'll speak one generally and then one personally. That was my problem in that. I think when you audit the alignment of your motive and it is not grounded in loving others, then you're probably not in the best path for success. You might achieve success, worldly success, but in terms of being who you were created to be, you're probably going to fall short. And so the alignment of your motive is going to be a really clear indication of if you're walking in the right direction. And when you're not, you might need to take a step back, whatever that may look like. And so for me personally, I'll give my answer. I have, again, there's no like stats. This is just more imagery that helps me pursue life. But I've identified that there's 3 groups of people that you'll meet throughout the course of your life. The outer group is people you'll only meet once. That group of people, I'm really good at being a light to, reflecting love to. The inner group is people that you see occasionally, like your coworkers, your friends, like people that you meet occasionally. Like I'm really good at being a light and loving those people. But then there's the inner group, and those are people that you see every day, family, spouses, maybe executives. And what I found for me personally is that the people closest to me, I was the least loving to. And that's not right. And so again, the indication of I fell out of alignment was that I need to love everyone. And if the people closest to me do not feel loved, then I'm probably not in the alignment I need to be in. And so that's why I stepped back and I said, I'm going to fix what I thought was a character flaw. which was being externally joy-filled to the people closest to me. If I fixed that, then I was ready to love in any capacity. But I knew that I was really only loving in 2 capacities, not 3 within the tiers.
Yeah, I think it's a good audit of like, how are you showing up to, especially the people closest to you? It's like, if that's off, maybe not going higher and to the right and taking on more responsibility, you know, in the worldly sense, it's probably not the move.
Yeah. Yeah, because I think we run the risk of, failing. And when I say failing, it's like, maybe lacking integrity at a high level. Like your capacity to impact is typically predicated on the caliber of your heart. And it's like, man, like a fear that of mine is like misrepresenting what I think our purpose is. Like I don't want to live this life grounded in love, but then not reflect love and discount maybe all the good that I've done for the last 20 years. And it's like, man, that equally motivates me. Not only am I pursuing impact, but I'm trying to minimize the failure of impact, which is not just missing the moment, but misrepresenting what love is. And man, we do that a lot.
We're going to pause this conversation quick. I got a question for you. Do you love having real conversations and really connecting with the people around you? I personally hate small talk. And so we made a game called No More Small Talk that gets straight to the good stuff. It's based around my love for wisdom as well as great questions and connection. It's kind of like a book club. Every card starts with a quote, something wise that gets you thinking, and then it's followed up with a thought-provoking question. So many of you have already said that you've been loving this game and it means the world to me. You guys can check it out on Amazon. It's called No More Small Talk if you want to get it there. It'll also be linked in the show notes. I hope you enjoy the rest of this conversation. Quote that I think you could expand on in your book. You say, "What I've come to discover is that if something does not bring out the best in you, then it was not created for you." Can you expand on that? Does that relate to this at all?
Yeah. I think if we're being honest, we feel voids in our life frequently. We feel like a longing for something, and we seek that fulfillment in whatever might fix that temporarily. If it's drugs, alcohol, sex, party, whatever it may be, like we want to fill that void. And so we chase things that will do that. And as far as like things that are created for you, those are not that. There's a lot of things in this world that if you audit the reason for creation, it was not created for you to become the best version of yourself. It was created to fill a void in your heart. And those things are not prosperous for the best you. And there was a story that I was told, many years ago that kind of solidified that for me. And I'll share it. It's cool.
Do it.
So the story begins with a young kid, and, growing up, his parents instilled within him this certain responsibility that, what to do and what not to do, right? The things to pursue and the things not to pursue, the life worth living and the life worth avoiding. And, growing up for the longest time, this kid obeyed his parents. He avoided the things they recommended him to not be a part of. But at a certain point, as the young boy got older and he entered junior high, the world became pretty apparent. And the things that they recommended he avoid, he found himself consumed in. And I think that's so true in today's world. A lot of these things that we know aren't good for us, we find ourselves consumed by. And at that time in this boy's life, he started slow and then it quickly became something unmanageable. And the thing that, is true about a cycle is that one of two things will happen when you get into a cycle like that. One, either you break out of the cycle, or two, the cycle will break you.
And is this addiction or?
Addiction, yeah, the things of this world kind of. And I go back on the drugs, alcohol, like vices, if you will. Things that we pursue to fill a void, I think create a cycle.
Okay.
And, this young boy, again, in the story, he became a part of the cycle. And, quickly as he progressed, he enters high school, and that cycle becomes more vicious. And drugs and alcohol run rampant in his life. And, that young boy didn't realize it then, but he knows it now. And, one night he was on his way back from a party, 16 years old, and about a quarter mile from reaching his home, the road began to turn, and he did not. And he drove his car straight off of the road and impacted a tree head on. On impact, his body pursued through the front of the windshield, and you don't need to be a human anatomy expert to understand the significance of what I'm about to share, but one piece of glass in particular cut from the back of his head to the front of his neck, and it passed just over his jugular artery. And the young boy's lying there in the grass, and he's bleeding out. And for the first time in his life, in that moment, he realized that all of the days building up into this day, he had lived for himself. That he was chasing, again, temporary joy, momentarily satisfaction. And he was like, man, there's not been one day in my life that I've actually lived it for someone else other than myself. And so he made a promise that if he were to live one more day, that he would guarantee all of his days would be grounded in loving others. The young boy falls unconscious, and on their way home that night, an EMT first responder saw the skid marks on the road, and he pulls off and he finds this boy's lifeless body laying in the grass. He grabs the boy, takes him to the hospital, and hours upon hours, they, do everything they can to restore life back into him. And eventually they did. And if you saw that young boy today, you would never recognize him for the past that he's been through, because that young boy grew up to be many things: a volunteer firefighter, an EMT first responder, a police officer, a rescue diver, a man of faith, but above all, a father to one beautiful daughter named Brooklyn and one average son, me. And see, when my dad was telling me this story, it changed my life. But it wasn't so much the story that echoed in my heart for years up until now, but rather the last thing that he said. He said, Blaine, every day that I wake up, I strive to become more of the man that I was yesterday in all aspects of my journey. And I thought, wow, what would living with that mindset create in us? Probably the greatest version of us that we could ever imagine. And so that's what I began to pursue. And this idea of, man, if you strive to become more than who you were yesterday, just in the slightest, the person you'll be tomorrow will be changed. The person you'll be in a month will be impactful. The person you'll become in a year will be unrecognizable. That is what living a life grounded in love will create. And I think if we condition ourselves to pursuing that, we will live a boundless life. But the moment we condition ourselves to enjoy the things that don't bring out that version of us, we will not become that version that we were created to be. And so this idea of, don't condition yourself to enjoy things that, were not created for you, paraphrasing, it's just like, man, there's things in your life that don't align with the greatest version of you. And those are the things to avoid. And so I think, again, we're created to love. And if we pursue that at the highest capacity within our grasp, we'll become who we were created to be. And we'll live the life that we were meant to live. And we know the things that don't align with that.
That's beautiful. That's so good. I think that we focus on this like behavior modification thing of like changing things just for the sake of, changing them or cutting them out of our life. But I think the story that you just told is so relevant because I think when we think about it as like, how can we get to a place where we're more equipped to love people, like that gives a different motivation behind why you need to change things. Like addiction, for example, like it's like, oh, I need to cut it out. But if it's because it's stopping you from loving people and like showing up in a loving way to your inner circle or whatever, that's a different motivation than just like, someone told me I need to stop because it's not good for me. It gives you, like you said your dad was saying, up until this point, I've lived every day for myself. And I think that that's just the biggest switch that I've realized and seen, and it's given me a different motivation for these getting out of these cycles, and because I have to examine, is it holding me back from showing up the best to the people around me, not just like, because there's plenty of addictions that could fuel my success in the world, you could say, or like I could use them for my own gain, but they're also making me show up horrible to other people, and so you have to like audit those things. And I love that you brought up the be cautious of what you condition yourself to enjoy. That's one of my favorite things that you say. But I do we got a couple more questions left. I want you to just practically expand on what it looks like to be a reflection of love, what it looks like. Just give some real examples of like what this looks like on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah, I think, if you care, I know, and we briefly off camera talking about light and love.
Yeah,
maybe
perfect.
I think a lot of times in the book, I refer to this idea of being a light. And I think being a light is really just a visual example of what reflecting love looks like. We say, I think our purpose, just like boldly to say it, is to love others. Like that is the purpose of your life. This being a light verbiage is just kind of a visual example of what that looks like in someone's life. And so if I say, go reflect love, you're like, oh, well, I guess be kind, be joyful. But when we say be light, like we say that imagery to kind of paint this visual of like, man, like guide someone's path, guide someone's day. Like if, the effectiveness of a light in a dark room is pretty huge, right? And, I always like to give the example of like, we're in a pitch dark warehouse, pitch dark, and we lit a candle, the candle would be enough, right? That's kind of the effort and the initiative we need to take in people's lives. It's like, it doesn't have to be a spotlight. It doesn't have to be, a million lumens. It could be a candle, and that could be as simple as a compliment. And so to practically give an example for showing up for people, I think it goes into, again, like just things we say could be huge, and so like a rule for life I think I have in this book is don't withhold beauty. How often do we go throughout our day and like, oh wow, his glasses are I like them, and we think that and we don't communicate that. And it's like, man, the cost to share a compliment is so minimal, but the effect it can have is so grand. And it's like, let's step into that. Like if we think something positive, let's express it. So on a practical minor scale, if you think something positive, say it. Compliment their outfit, compliment their hair, compliment anything that you think, say it. Because I think that small step, wow, would create a beautiful place, right? And then on a grander scale, realize that there's bigger moments that you have to step into as well. Maybe there's conversations at a high level you need to give. And, maybe there's career paths that you need to step into, or even skill sets that you need to refine for the next platform. A lot of those metrics will help you, again, become the best you. And so how to be a light practically, look for the moments and step into them. Compliments, words of encouragement, the thing you do, like every moment is another opportunity to be a light. And we should just step into those every opportunity we get. I hope that answers.
Yeah, no, it's good. Let's finish it off with 4 steps to living a purposeful life. I love that chapter.
Yeah, funny chapter, because initially it was the only chapter I added to the book after like some people are like, I need like actionable steps. And yeah, so like 4 steps to, living with purpose. I think often in today's age, we paint this elusiveness toward the word purpose. Like, let me help you find your purpose or discover your purpose or uncover your purpose. I might be a little bold in saying this, but I think we just need to be told our purpose. Our purpose is to be a light. Our purpose is to reflect love. That is the purpose of your life. So we're not uncovering anything. We're not looking for anything. We're accepting what is to be ours. And so step 1 of the 4 steps to live a purposeful life is to accept your purpose. Your purpose is to be a light. Again, your purpose is to love people. Accept that. And before you accept it, if you don't accept it, you can't pursue it. And I think a life spent searching for purpose isn't nearly as impactful as a life spent living it. So step 1, accept your purpose. right? Step 2, this is more practical. Figure out the skill sets within you that will allow you to thrive, right? Maybe you're patient, maybe you're disciplined, maybe you're creative. Like there's things about you that are unlike anyone else in this world that just come effortless to you, right? Figure out what those skill sets are. Write them down. If there are 2, if there's 1, if there's 10, write down the skill sets that come effortless to you. Step 3, then discover your platform. So once you identify your skills and character, step 2, step 3 is discover your platform. What platform in your life will allow those skill sets to flourish, right? If it's storytelling, maybe video is your platform, right? If you're patient, maybe education is your platform, right? Like figure out what comes effortless to you, skills and character, then go look for the platform, right? So step 1, accept your purpose. Step 2, identify your skills. Step 3, discover your platform. And step 4, which is the most important, pursue your people. It does you no good to use your skills in your platform if you're not stepping in and fulfilling your purpose. So step 1 is accept your purpose, but step 4 is pursue your people, right? I don't want you to get to the place you were created to get to and miss the moment you were meant to step into. Like there's someone waiting for you. And we talk about it often. And if, nothing again is connected with us or you throughout the time it's taken us to get here, like I hope my closing words will, there is no greater purpose in your life than to love the next person you see. If you do that, you'll become the version you were supposed to be, but you have to be looking for them. You have to be pursuing your people. And so this idea that I think kind of sums it up, not to give another 1, 2, 3, but the day that love becomes your focus, impact will become your mission. And when impact becomes your mission, everyone else will be affected by that. So live that out, pursue your people, find your people, love your people. And when you do that, life's going to become a lot better.
Let's go.
Gee.
Give me that book.
Yeah.
Let me see that. If you guys want to read more into this, you can get this book, Your Platform's Not Your Purpose. It was an honor to watch Blaine write this, and it's really cool to me that you guys get to kind of catch a glimpse of, the guy that I get to hang out with all the time, and, the wisdom that I get to hear that's really impacted my life. So it's kind of an honor to bring him on here and talk and, share his wisdom with everyone. And I think that this book is an incredible book. It's called Your Platform's Not Your Purpose again. And it's just it's a little more of a deep dive into his story as well as some great lessons. But I do have to end with, what is your favorite quote? I always ask that. Do you have a favorite quote?
There's a lot that comes to my mind, but I think just for the sake of our conversation, the subline of the book has been, really important to me. And that line is, dedicate your life to being good and greatness will chase you. I think that's so true, and just to kind of give a little background on that before we wrap up, it was a concept that I've heard from Erwin Raphael McManus that just painted such a beautiful image of a life well lived for me. And it's allowed me to kind of pursue that. And it basically put language to the life that I had been experiencing. That, I had dedicated my life to being good at the highest level I could. And I've experienced things that people would define as great, but I never pursued it, and just to briefly kind of explain what Erwin talks about, and I'm probably definitely going to not hit it perfectly, but it's this idea that good and great are different. And in today's world, we pursue greatness more so than goodness. And, this idea that good is essence-based and great is achievement-based. And it's like, man, where did that idea come from? The idea that living a life being good and living a life being great, are two different things. It's like, man, and the example that he gives, that I think speaks volumes, is just and I'll kind of ask the question, who do you want to become? Do you want to be someone that's great, or do you want to be someone that is good? And I think this life grounded in being good is such a beautiful idea, because, again, I'm kind of maybe going a little too far into it, but if I were to ask you, what's the most dynamic thing to ever be created? What are some things that you would think of,
I've heard this before, so I'm trying to remember. I think humanity, is that?
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah. But like commonly, like, you know, we would say Wi-Fi, or we would say Tesla, like, you know, we'd say all these things that we've come to know as like the most dynamic thing to be created. But really the most dynamic thing to be created is you, as humans. Like, it doesn't get more complex than us. And, you know, kind of bringing a little bit of Bible into it, like in Genesis, you know, I love it because everyone talks about the creation of everything. And it was like, man, like when God created heaven and earth, you know, he looked at it and he said it was good. And then he created, you know, plants and animals, and he said it was good. And then he created you. If anything should be defined as great, it'd be you. But he said it's very good. And it's like, wow, man, like maybe that's the pursuit worth going after, right? It's like a life of being good and achieving goodness, right? Not greatness. And so that quote, I think, hit me pretty hard because I've seen it, I've experienced it, and, you know, I've seen the different sides of it. I've seen people pursue greatness and live a pretty hollow life as far as fulfillment goes. And then I've seen the other side where people have pursued goodness and they're abundantly fulfilled. And I think that's kind of what we're after. And I think when we do that, people will look at the things that we might accumulate and the levels of humanity we've reached and might think that we're great and may call us great. But in our heart, we know that we pursued being good. And greatness was just a side effect of that.
A byproduct.
100%. You know?
That's good.
Anyway, Erwin McManus.
Yeah.
Legend.
He's a legend. All right. Let's chase a life of being good. Be a light. This is great, Blaine. Thank you, dude.
Thanks, Nick. Legend.
Thank you so much for tuning into this conversation. We hope you loved it, and we hope you share it with your friends. And we also hope you subscribe. It's free for you to do, and it helps us out so much. These episodes are directed and edited by the one and only Mason Allen. This show would not happen without him. I'm Nicholas John. I hope you have a great day.